Jaguars at the link. Partner Bill thinks this could be a trap game, but I don't know if the Jaguars are playing well enough to pull that off in Eagleville. So for more information on what this team is bringing in here this weekend, let's go to the man who covers the Jags for ESPN.com. His name is Michael DeRocco. He's on the Comcast Business Hotline. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing well. How are you guys today?
Fantastic. So tell us about the state of your team right now. Obviously, the familiarity with your head coach, who may be walking the plank right now. But are they going to be representative in this game? They're a heavy underdog.
Yeah, I kind of expect this game to go a little bit like the Packers game did last week, from the standpoint of the Jags are going to stumble around early, make a ton of mistakes, get off to a slow start offensively. They'll start to put a few things together, in that second half. But eventually they'll make the big major mistake that's going to keep them from having a chance to win the game. That's pretty much been the way they've operated all season, with the exception of against the Patriots and against the Colts, where they won those games. But otherwise, it's been pretty much the same thing. Just can't get out of their own way, make a few plays here and there, and then, sometimes get it close, but just can't figure out a way to stop hurting themselves.
All right, so is that a reflection of how this team is coached, or is this a reflection of what their roster is?
Yeah, we debate that over here a ton because, a lot of my thinking is players make plays, obviously, and they're the guys that have to do it on the field. And I haven't had guys tell me that they weren't prepared for a situation. Were they caught in a wrong situation that maybe, like last week, they were in the wrong coverage. The defense coordinator, Ron Nielsen, called the wrong coverage at the end of the game, which allowed a bust that let, the Packers get in position for the game-winning field goal. But, I go back to, pre-snap penalties. Well, that's not a coaching thing. That's you're not supposed to jump offside kind of thing, or you're not supposed to line up in the neutral zone kind of thing. There's a couple of roughing the passer penalties that have overridden some third down stops on defense. Well, that's, don't hit the quarterback in the head. It's some of the basic stuff that they're doing here. And I know that down here there's been a lot of pressure on Press Taylor, the offensive coordinator. I'm sure this is like a broken record for you guys up there, talking about Press Taylor, but he's not had, he's not been a problem here this season. So I tend to put this a little bit more on, the players in terms of execution, and they've missed on some guys on the defensive side of the ball badly. Eric Armstead has not helped them at all. Ronald Darby has not helped them at all. He's been one of the worst corners in the league this year. And, it's sort of everybody down here wants like one reason, and it's never one reason. So, at times it's been the mistakes, at times it's been the players, at times it's been, the misses on the roster causing them issues. And sure, have there been some coaching decisions and coaching issues that have crept up? Absolutely. But I can't put one above the other because it's all been an issue, which makes it a giant mess that it is.
Let's talk about their offense a little bit, though, because this kid was supposed to be progressing to be one of the better quarterbacks in the league. It really has not happened. Now, I look at his skill players. They're not exceptional. I don't think his offensive line is that good. But talk to me about Trevor Lawrence. Is he growing as a quarterback in this league or not?
Yes, but his problem, the biggest issue with Trevor Lawrence is exactly what happened against the Packers on Saturday. Last Sunday. He made two bonehead mistakes. He throws a pass that was a terrible pass, got intercepted inside the Jags 30, I believe it was. The Packers turned that into a touchdown. He tries to evade a potential sack, and he's not taking care of the ball. He's got it hanging out in his hand, loose, gets knocked out of his hand. The Packers recover. Next play, it's like a 3-yard touchdown pass. But then you go into the fourth quarter, they're down by 10. He leads them on a drive to get a field goal and then a touchdown drive without his top three wide receivers. Brian Thomas Jr., Christian Kirk is out, Gabe Davis is out. So he's going with Evan Ingram, 6th-round pick last year, replacing Kirk in the slot. Two little-used wide receivers, and they've got to go with the second tight end as a pass catcher. But he drives them down the field and hurry up. And they score a touchdown on probably one of the 2 or 3 best passes he's thrown all year. and he has them in position to win, and the defense just falls apart there. But it's the inconsistency that he has that has really kind of held them back at times. And he's got the ability to make every throw, and he has a really good arm, and he has a good mobility in the pocket. He has a good pocket presence, feels things pretty well there. He just makes too many bonehead mistakes that he shouldn't be making at this point. And I don't know if that's going to be who he is for the rest of his career, where he's going to give you a lot of good stuff, but you're going to have to take a little bit of the bad with it. But they don't have a team that's good enough to overcome that, especially defensively. So I think that's sort of holding him and the Jags back a little bit.
Now, Michael, we've seen this story before in the NFL. Head coaches don't usually survive inconsistent quarterback play, and that's the reason Doug Peterson was brought to Jacksonville. So I know you said a lot of this isn't on Doug Peterson, but if they come into Philadelphia this weekend and they don't perform well, is this the last game of Doug Peterson's head coaching career in Jacksonville?
No, I don't think so. They have a late bye, week 12. So they have the Vikings the week after, and then they go to Detroit, and then they have the bye. So if there is going to be a move made in season, and look, if they don't play well in Philly and they don't play well at home against the Vikings, they're going up to Philly and they're going to get, smacked around pretty bad, or excuse me, to Detroit, they're going to get smacked around pretty bad, then I would expect the move to come then. Shad Khan has shown throughout his tenure here that he's really, really patient. He doesn't like to make the move in season. He had really no choice to do it with Urban Meyer because of all the other issues with Urban Meyer. But if there's a move made in season, it will be at that bye week. But I wouldn't expect it on Monday or Tuesday, even if they lose like they did to, the Chicago Bears or the Buffalo Bills. I still think he'll be around at least until mid-November.
What is your perception of Doug? Having covered Doug Peterson down there, what kind of a coach do you think he is? How's he been? I mean, I don't know what the media is like down there as far as the pressure that he faces on an everyday basis like he did up here in Philly, but what's your perception of Doug Peterson?
It's not the same media. We're probably a little bit softer than the Philly media. Hard to believe, I'm sure. I think Doug gets frustrated with Trevor Lawrence, and I think that's the biggest thing because he hasn't been able to reach Trevor in terms of stop the bonehead mistakes and play with some consistency. Because if he can play with consistency, then I think he's got a really good quarterback on his hands. And I think that frustrates him. We talked to Doug after the game last week asking about the rally at the end and the way Trevor played to get him, to a chance to tie the game and stuff. And he really didn't give him a whole lot of praise because he's still he's still annoyed by the 2 turnovers that put him in that situation there. I think he's dealing with some roster issues that he didn't create, especially with some of those guys that I mentioned, the free agents that they brought in that really haven't done anything for them. Gabe Davis is another guy they brought in at wide receiver to kind of help them. And, I think Doug's one of those guys that as a former player, he has a higher standard for some of these guys, maybe than they even have of themselves, I think, at times, especially at quarterback. And, I know the players like him. I know the players get along with him. There was a report, I don't know, about a month ago that he had lost the locker room, and that's not the case. I can state that 100%. I've been in the locker room here in Jacksonville where a coach has lost it and where it has been a bad locker room, and I have not seen any of that here. And I think he's a good coach. I mean, look, you don't win a Super Bowl in the NFL if you're a bad coach. You just can't do it. There's too many things that you could screw up along the way. And he beat Belichick and Brady in a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. And I know Nick Foles had a fantastic year up there, but, man, the Nick Foles that I saw when he was down here was awful. So I don't think Doug is a bad coach. I think he's been hamstrung by a few issues personnel-wise here. And maybe his message hasn't gotten across as well as it should have. But I don't think that that's put him in a bad spot where they can't come back from this, meaning, if Shad Khan does decide to retain him, that next year won't be more like the way 2022 ended with them in the postseason as opposed to the way it's going right now.
All right, last question. We're talking to Michael DeRocco, who covers the Jags for ESPN.com. Michael, the Eagles right now are riding high. They're loving themselves right now. I mean, even the head coach is no longer considered a boob by a lot of people because of what they did last week, right? So they're in a spot where they're smelling themselves a little bit, and then they have Dallas up next. Do you feel a vibe that Jacksonville could come in here and win this game?
Not really. I mean, the Eagles are better. I mean, like, they're better. They're better on both sides of the ball. They've got offensive playmakers. This team is one of the worst in the league at defending the pass. They're on pace to have probably the second worst defense in terms of points allowed and total yards allowed per game. I don't see a way where they're going to keep the Eagles under 28 points. I don't see it. And the way this team keeps making mistakes and stumbling all over themselves, they'd have to play a literal perfect game on offense to have a chance to win this game. So I don't see that happening. Now, if the Eagles make a couple of mistakes here and there, or a couple of drop passes, a fumble or whatever, then maybe. But, they're just not on the Eagles level right now. And, can they be in a year or two? Maybe. But they just have too many issues right now to come up there and win that game. Could be competitive, but I don't see them winning it.
All right.
Well, I got one more for you, Michael. This is more of a selfish question because I have him on my fantasy team. Travis Etienne, is he playing this weekend?
That's my expectation that he should play this week. Yeah, absolutely. But it'll be a little bit more of a mix with Tank Bigsby than maybe before the injury, because Bigsby has really done a good job kind of stepping in and being the number one running back while he's been gone. So I wouldn't expect a 50-50 split, but it might be closer to 60-40.
All right. There you go.
Gotcha.
Michael DeRocco, thanks for joining us. He covers the Jags. He'll be in Philly this weekend. Thanks for coming up.
Hey, listen, I appreciate it, but I need to know, where am I going to get a cheesesteak?
Well, you are going to one of two places. You're either going to John's Roast Pork, which is near the stadium, or you're going to Angelo's. But you're going to have to you do it on Saturday?
I don't think John's is open Saturdays, is it?
Yes, they're open on Saturdays.
They are?
Yeah, they're open on Saturdays. And Angelo's
might be it.
Angelo's, you'll have to wait if you're staying in Center City. There'll be a line on Saturday, so hang in there because it's worth it.